This is the Private Officer Beat Radio with Rick McCann at the microphone.
Hello and welcome to today's edition of the Private Officer Beat Radio. I'm your host, Rick McCann. Happy to be behind the microphone once again as we quickly close in on 700 episodes. We're not quite there yet, but we're definitely working on it, and I hope that you are enjoying the variety of topics that we bring to you with every radio program. Now, last week we brought to you on the legal side, and we talked about a $189 million judgment against a private security company. And we also talked about a lawsuit by a security officer after he was exposed to hazardous chemicals without proper PPE. We do a lot of research here. I've spoke about this before, but we don't just sit down and start recording like many do on a podcast. This is a radio program, a radio show that is broadcasted live from our studios, True Studios, and researched by my staff and myself before we ever go on air. We don't just pop on and start talking about odds and ends. We try to focus on a different subject matter, a different topic, especially those that are current and in the news, to help educate, inform, and train our listeners. So I hope that you really do appreciate that, because that is really a very big part of what we do here. It's very time consuming, and it involves a lot of effort on our part to get that out. And this week, there's no difference. Actually, we have a subject that we'll be talking about, and that is juvenile violence, crimes committed by juveniles. And it's not something that we're just going to, briefly touch on. We want to talk about this for the next couple of weeks, because juveniles has always been that category of person that we deal with frequently, whether that be in shoplifting for LPs or physical security at properties and malls. I've got stories. But we have some recent stories involving juveniles and security and the rise in violent crimes. Now, just recently, in the last few days, a shooting involving it was a shootout involving a 12-year-old and an adult during an attempted carjacking by the teenager. We'll be talking about that. And several security officers have been killed in recent years by juveniles. So it really is a very serious matter, and it's definitely something that we need to talk about, to be able to understand what's happening and prepare for it, because sometimes you have to look at that assailant as an assailant and not as a kid. Well, I've got children that... No, we got to look at it for what it is, and we'll talk about that in the bottom half of the program. But in the meantime, we've got a lot of news and information. We're also going to be talking about upcoming events and so much more here on this episode of the Private Officer Beat Radio. Now, next week, we'll be sending out emails and giving you an opportunity to begin nominating your coworkers, your friends, law enforcement, maybe the manager or the owner of your security company, your employer, and even yourself in the annual upcoming Private Officer International Award Program. And we are excited about this because we love, absolutely, to honor, acknowledge, and reward our frontline security personnel as well as law enforcement, because what they do is underreported, as you know. They don't get the credit they deserve. Neither security nor law enforcement, as far as that's concerned. And that's why about 6 weeks ago we began a brand new program, The Good We Do. And every week or 10 days or so we announce security officers that have been highlighted in the media or that we have become aware of that has done something really, really great. And when I come back from the first break, I'm going to talk about the last batch of 4 security officers that were honored. If you're not getting our newsletters, go to privateofficer.org. A box will drop down. Just put in your name and your email address. We don't spam you. We don't sell your information. I know sometimes we get comments about, oh, I get too many emails from you, and that's why I'm, not going to receive them anymore. Well, that's not true. We're only sending 2 to 3 emails a week, generally. And most news, whether you're signed up for your local news, your newspaper, or your TV station, they're sending out updates and breaking news every single day. I know, I get them. Our office receives about 3,000 of them every day, and that is a fact. So if you're receiving 2 or 3 a week, I think that's reasonable, but who knows? It depends on what the purpose was that you signed up to receive the news to begin with. We really think that we're doing a great service by sending this information out, and we'll continue to do so. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, like I said, I'm going to tell you about those 4 security officers that we just recently recognized and a whole lot more that's happening. You're listening to the voice of the Frontline Protector, a production of Blue Ram Media Group, LLC, and Private Officer International.
Without these people, I'd be dead.
This man helped my son through leukemia. Do something amazing. Give blood.
My friend died because someone made a bad driving mistake.
My uncle died because someone didn't think before they got behind the wheel. You let down your parents and your loved ones.
You could lose your friend. Parents don't like their kids hanging out with them.
Drug driving is just as bad as drunk driving.
Friends, right now, Armored Tech, a division of Armor College, is looking for people just like you to start your own school right where you're at. It doesn't take a lot of money, but it does take a little experience. You do have to have a few qualifications as an instructor, but we also certify you in many other areas. Currently, we are regulatory trainers for more than a dozen states. And if you're currently an instructor for your state security regulatory agency or the Red Cross or EMA or other types of disciplines, we want to talk with you. Have you ever thought about being in business, starting your own school? Well, now you can. With 100% support of Armor College. You can open up your own local school and be part of the Armor College system right now. You could be in business in a matter of weeks. Contact Carrie, C-A-R-R-I-E, at Armour College, A-R-M-O-U-R college.org for more information. I think once you find out how easy it is to own your own school, to be in business for yourself but not by yourself, you're going to ask, why in the world didn't I do this sooner? Contact Armour College today for more information.
Every day we take steps to keep the people we love safe, but some health risks are easy to miss. Ticks hiding in the yard can spread germs, like the ones that cause Lyme disease. Mice searching for food can spread bacteria that makes us sick. Mosquitoes lay eggs in standing water and can spread West Nile virus and more. Cockroaches are drawn to water in the home, leaving behind allergens that can trigger asthma attacks. Common pests can threaten our health. Learn how to protect your family at pestworld.org.
It's a very simple thing. It only takes 2 seconds. We all know we should do it. We all say we do it. But really, about 35,000 people were killed in motor vehicle accidents last year. More than half were not wearing a seatbelt. A brother, a father, a mother, a best friend. Is it worth it? I lost a sister. Don't let it happen to you and your family. Tell the people you love to buckle up.
Welcome back to Private Officer International, a production of Blue Ram Media Group, LLC, and Private Officer International. We have received several news bulletins from law enforcement. This last one here is from the FBI. We've also received news bulletins from individual law enforcement agencies over the last 10 to 14 days. These bulletins I have passed along to our members as well as those that receive our breaking news alerts. Coming out of Los Angeles, and all of these alerts, by the way, all deal with armored truck robberies, shootings, robberies, and shootings, robberies, and shootings, one after the other, after the other, after the other. And it has seems like this year, since January 1st, these robberies of armored trucks across the country has picked up substantially, even more so than in recent years. Now, this latest update from the FBI is a FBI armored truck security alert that was sent to us. And doing some research, we also found this to be something that LAPD put out, as well as the LAPD media. Currently in the Los Angeles metro area, a group that they have tagged as Chesapeake Bandits have raided and targeted a number of armored vehicles in the LA County area, including LA, Hawthorne, Inglewood, and other areas. The FBI and local police say one man, Denavius Hobson, 36, was captured. He's been arrested for the crimes, but there are several others outstanding. According to the FBI bulletin that we first received, about a half a dozen of these armored truck robberies are related to this team. And on Thursday of last week, the FBI, along with the LAPD, released surveillance images of the persons that they are trying to apprehend. The group has targeted drive-through ATMs and other businesses, including check cashing locations, primarily robbing armored trucks who are delivering funds or working on ATMs. Several shots have been fired during these robberies. The FBI described one of those incidents on February the 14th when the suspects robbed a Sectrans security armored car driver at the Westcom Credit Union in Hawthorne. They had AR-15s, a black semi-automatic handgun. They were driving driving a white Honda Accord as a drive-away vehicle. Police also said that they hit a Loomis armored truck at the Bank of America. They hit a Brinks armored truck at the PLS check cashers. They're also believed to be responsible for a robbery of a Brinks truck at a 99-cents only store on Crenshaw Boulevard. Again, a black assault-style rifle was used, and they drove away in a Kia K5. Other robberies that are associated with these suspects, could exceed the LA metro area. FBI and law enforcement in California are putting together notes and information regarding other possible links to this group. Now, if you did not receive this alert, you can contact helpdesk@privateofficer.com, and they can send that back out to you. Right now, Brinks and the FBI are each offering $25,000, so that's $50,000 in reward money, in exchange for information leading to the arrest and indictment of a person or persons involved in the robberies of the Brinks armored vehicles in the LA region, according to the FBI statement. This would be really a terrible situation, especially with at least 5 or 6 of these robberies all done by the same team. But in the past 30 days, we've had armored truck robberies and shootings in Chicago. A 38-year-old armored truck security officer at a strip mall was attacked. The individuals opened fire on the security officer, hitting him in the bulletproof vest. According to police, suspects fled. The security officer is in good condition. Now, not too far away in Southfield, Michigan, not too far from Detroit, another armored truck was involved in a shootout at a McDonald's. The truck driver shot at the suspect during a robbery attempt at the Southfield McDonald's. This occurred just Friday morning. The 3 men attempted to rob the driver. Now, this sounds very familiar to the last robbery that I just spoke of a McDonald's at the 10 Mile and Telegraph. After the driver fired numerous shots, the suspects fled. No money was taken and nobody was injured. As far as security, they don't know if the suspects were hit. According to the FBI, this was one of the most brazen daytime robberies that they've seen in the area in quite some time. Police are definitely on the lookout. In Harris County, Texas, this happened mid-February. A 19-year-old was arrested after he robbed an armored truck and shot the security officer at the Willowbrook Mall. That suspect fled, was able to flee. Ricardo Rodriguez has been charged in connection with that shooting at the Willowbrook Mall. Authorities say the team faces multiple federal charges. The armored truck security officer was hospitalized in that shooting. He took a bullet, and he is currently recovering from that. Down the road, or up the road, no, it would be down, a little east of Houston and Shreveport, Louisiana, police there are still investigating an armored truck robbery. Police said that it happened at a Circle K gas station. The driver of that truck was robbed as he exited the store. He was robbed of an unknown or undisclosed amount of cash that he picked up. Suspects were wearing dark hoodies and black ski masks and armed. Right now, police don't have any suspects, or they have not made any arrests. We'd also told you about last month that for about 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, police were investigating a number of armored truck robberies in Texas, in the Converse area, and they believed that it was a gang, and eventually was able to connect the dots that one of the security staff members of the Garda armored truck was involved in the numerous robberies. Police arrested Martinez Rodriguez he was an armored truck security employee for Garda. He was involved. They have since made a few other arrests. He initially said that it was 3 black males that had robbed his truck. Police are still investigating, but this is one of those cases where you don't know, and police begin to investigate, and all of a sudden things start to come together. Other armed robberies of armored trucks have been reported since the beginning of the year throughout the country. Like I said in the beginning, we are seeing a substantial rise in armored truck robberies. Now, as a regulatory instructor for multiple states, this is actually an area that we do train to certify or license the armored truck security personnel. We often talk about tactical maneuvers and observation, how to escape an attempted robbery before it happens. It really does all begin with situational awareness, and a lot of times I have noticed myself throughout the years that armored trucks just roll into the shopping center or the fast food joint or wherever they might be to pick up the money. They hop out. They don't even look around. I don't know how many times I've seen security personnel walk out just kind of swinging the bag of money like it was sand, and very little situational awareness. Of course, during the training by Garda, Brinks, and all of the armored truck providers, they always say, give up the money, don't fight. But security officers still do have to defend themselves, when it's a life and death situation. So, yeah, you might give up the money, but, sometimes when you're dodging bullets, you have to defend yourself. So, but we teach a lot of that in a number of states, and we have noticed, in fact, just last year, we did a 10-year compilation of robberies of the armored truck personnel, and we taught that at several locations, and people were quite surprised as to the number of armored truck robberies that do occur every year. We are going to take a quick break. We have a lot more to talk about. Today's topic at the bottom of the program is going to be juvenile violence. And we do have some breaking news we're going to bring you as well, and so much more. We'll be right back here on the Private Officer Beat Radio. Hey folks, thanks for joining us here on 3-digit emergency number if you're feeling suicidal, if you're experiencing a life crisis. 988 is now the 3 digits that you can dial, just like 911 across the country. You'll connect with mental health professionals, and the 988 number will connect you with the Crisis Lifeline, formerly known as a National Suicide Prevention Line. Veterans can press 1 after dialing 988 to connect directly to the Veterans Crisis Lifeline, which serves our nation's veterans, service members, National Guard, and Reserve members, and those who support them. For text, veterans should continue to text the Veterans Crisis Lifeline, short code 838255. Too many people experience suicidal crisis or mental health-related distress without the support and care that they need. But you're not alone. Simply pick up the phone and dial or text 988. Someone will answer that phone who is caring, understanding, and there to help you. 988. There is hope.
Since the inception of Private Officer International, we have continuously looked at different vehicles and methods and manners of way that we can recognize private security and private law enforcement officers. We have established an award program. We have established foundation. We have established a benevolent program. And we have done pretty well, almost 20 years in the making. But we continue to look at the various ways that we can continue our effort in a broader way. About 6 or so weeks ago, maybe a little bit longer, we came up with another avenue, another tool, and that is to send out a broadcast, a wide-reaching newsletter and press release. 16,000 of them went out this past time, honoring and recognizing security officers. This week, we're recognizing 4 security officers, 2 who ran out into gunfire. They ran into gunfire to make sure to rescue children who might be in harm's way. They definitely put their own life above anybody else's. They threw caution to the wind. They were willing to lay down their own lives for anybody. Security officers Deverin Dillon and Sandra Beasley were working security inside the Franklin Educational Campus on the morning of January 5th when they heard gunfire. Now, originally they ducked, and then they looked up and they looked around to see that there were 3 students clearly in harm's way. They were outside the front door. A suspect was pointing a gun at a male student. And the 2 female students were crouching in the doorway, covering themselves up. And rather than go hide someplace, rather than to seek shelter and save themselves, Dillon and Beasley ran out the front door of the schools, and they jumped into action. Dillon told local reporters, we had to go. We had to help these children. We had to go put our own life on the line because we don't know if that young man was still outside or not, but we knew students needed to be rescued. They were out there on their own. And so they jumped into action. They both said they did what they were trained to do by the district, and it all just went into motion. Beasley opened the locked door and grabbed the 2 girls. Dillon prepared to do CPR, thinking they're going to be shot, and I'm going to have to provide life support until EMS and police can get here. And thinking that the male student might even be dead, they drug him in. But thankfully, the gunfire missed all of the students. Both the security officers said that they were looking at all 3 of the students. They were looking for a bullet. They were thinking maybe even the male student was dead. And they even talked among each other, the security officers saying, we're probably going to have to start CPR. We're probably going to have to try and stop the bleeding. They were able to take the students to the auditorium and get the school into a lockdown while waiting for police to respond. And despite the frightening incident, both Dillon and Beasley, who are both Rochester City School District graduates, both smile today while talking about how much they love their jobs and protecting the students who they call their babies. At a city school council meeting, the 2 security officers were recognized for courage and quick thinking. They were honored at the meeting. Both security officers quickly said they would do it again. We were just doing our job. We're not going to let anything happen to our babies, Beasley said. They laughed when asked if they took time off from work after the shooting, and they said, no, we don't miss days. We don't take time off at work because we got to protect our babies. Dylan said he loves the job, and he loves getting up in the morning knowing that he's going to make a difference. We love Franklin. He says he's been there since 2012. I'm not running away. Both agree that it's their job to protect those kids every day that they come to class. And you know what? Both said it was like a miracle when the students turned out to be fine, that they jumped into action, that their training came to play, and everything worked out fine. They are true heroes. They really are. In Union, New Jersey, a Union high school security officer was recognized recently and honored by the Board of Education at Tuesday night's meeting last week for saving the life of a choking student last month. Security Officer Rich Schubert performed the Heimlich maneuver of a student who had something lodged in his throat. The security officer noticed that something wasn't right with the student. He suddenly stopped to see that the student was choking as he was stepping out of the cafeteria. The security officer immediately went into action. He saw that the student was losing color and he couldn't breathe. A videotape was shared during the board's award ceremony showing Schubert rushing to aid the student and performing the Heimlich maneuver and dislodging the item from the student's throat and essentially saving that student's life. This is a very special, humble individual who reflects the special qualities of the important people behind the scenes that we don't get a chance to honor too often, said Scott Taylor, the superintendent of Union High. Once again, the security officer could have just grabbed his phone and nonchalantly called 911 and said, well, I'm not an EMT, I'm not a paramedic, I'll just wait for them, I'll call 911. But that's not what the security officer did. He jumped immediately into action. He took no time at all to make a decision. I need to do the Heimlich maneuver. I need to dislodge this item, or this student may not make it home to his parents. And he did. And of course, we recognize him today as a hero as well. And the last security officer, a federal security officer that we're recognizing, has more than 60 years in law enforcement and security. Art Watts is currently a federal courthouse security officer after retiring from law enforcement. He spent 32 years at the Richland Township Police Department. He retired at the rank of captain, and then he went to work at the courthouse, among some other jobs. Now, he is retiring from his position at the courthouse, but he says he's not the retiring kind. No, not at all. So the Richland Township native is going to go back to leading a security company, a private security company that he founded, and he's going to stay active. They say they have, he says that his security company has many jobs. They do a lot of the festivals, and he's going to be out there. He doesn't know what his schedule will be, but he's not retiring. Private Officer International is reaching out to all four of these security officers. And we hope that we are able to locate them. We're going to make every possible effort. And we're going to present them our own award and recognize them accordingly. And we hope to get some video and some photos to share on our social media. And remember, April is our Officer Awards annual event. But you can recognize your fellow coworker, another security or law enforcement officer, anytime simply by contacting helpdesk@privateofficer.com. We are going to take a quick break. Remember, you can read our breaking news 24/7 at privateofficerbreakingnews.blogspot.com and join us on social media. Be part of the conversation at facebook.com/Private Officer International and twitter.com/Private Officer. We'll be right back. My friends, right now, Armor Tech, a division of Armor College, is looking for people just like you to start your own school right where you're at. It doesn't take a lot of money, but it does take a little experience. You do have to have a few qualifications as an instructor, but we also certify you in many other areas. Currently, we are regulatory trainers for more than a dozen states. And if you're currently an instructor for your state security regulatory agency or the Red Cross or EMA or other types of disciplines, we want to talk with you. Have you ever thought about being in business, starting your own school? Well, now you can, with the 100% support of Armor College. You can open up your own local school and be part of the Armor College system right now. You could be in business in a matter of weeks. Contact Carrie, Carrie, at Armor College, ARMOUR College.org for more information. I think once you find out how easy it is to own your own school, to be in business for yourself but not by yourself, you're going to ask, why in the world didn't I do this sooner? Contact Armor College today for more information.
This past week, the United States Secret Service released its first ever active shooter report. According to the U.S. Secret Service, they use a number of different common factors in these shootings to prepare the report. The Secret Service analyzed 173 mass attacks from 2016 through 2020. What they found was not really surprising, but it just shows the common threads that often occur in these shootings. First, they started with the location. The most common site for mass shootings were businesses, restaurants, and retail facilities. Second, they analyzed all of the mass shootings, the 173 of them, to see what was the most common weapon used. And in a recent active shooter training, I revealed these same facts, and that is 73% involved firearms, the majority were handguns, and that the guns were acquired illegally in only a quarter of all incidents, meaning 75% of the shootings involved legally acquired firearms. When they looked at the individuals, the perpetrators, most of the mass shootings, in fact, 96% were committed by males. Many times, people point to criminal history, that they were violent people. The Secret Service found that most mass shooters, 64%, had a criminal record. More than 40% had a history of domestic violence. What the report does not state is what type of criminal record did they have. Just because they had been charged with shoplifting, trespassing, or public intoxication, it would not indicate that they would be a primary candidate to be an active shooter. Social media plays a big role in crimes, including active shooting. Most mass shooters had an online presence. Further, the Secret Service found 25% conveyed concerning communications on these social media platforms. In other words, they gave clues that they either had plans of attacking someone, or that they were violent in nature, or had some disdain for someone or something. Concerning communications, the Secret Service says, often did reveal threats, thoughts about suicide, or discussions of previous mass shootings. Traumas was also looked at in this study. Nearly all mass shooters experienced one or more significant stressors or traumas in their lives within the past 5 years. These included family and romantic issues, unresolved childhood trauma, physical or sexual abuse, or financial stressors. While this is truly one of the indicators, it's very difficult to narrow down if any of these were the key factor in the perpetrator becoming a mass shooter. Homelessness also played a part, according to the Secret Service. 40% of the attackers said they experienced unstable housing situations within the past 20 years, including homelessness. And of course, last but not least, mental health issues. The report revealed that 60% of the attackers experienced some level of mental health problem before the attack, including suicidal thoughts, depression, paranoia, and delusions. However, the report went on to make clear that mental health issues should not be used to explain away the attack. Excuses only protect the perpetrator. We have learned over the years that homeless people and those with mental health issues are often the victims of the attacks, not necessarily the perpetrators, the Secret Service stated. While this is an interesting report, it is not all surprising or revealing. We know that mental health issues are on the rise. We know that certain people who are angry with their employer, their spouse, or somebody else will sometimes take it to the next level with violence. But these are good clues, and we need to be cognizant of it. We need to, when we're dealing with people in the field, or when we're even on social media or in some other capacity with people, we need to be able to triage what they're saying and understand. That's why after 9/11, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security came out with 8 signs of terrorism. The same thing. This doesn't mean that they all will point to somebody that is a terrorist, but these are certainly signs to look for. And that's exactly what the Secret Service has concluded in their report. Body Armor USA, we've got what it takes to protect you. Whether you're looking for the top quality protective armor or protective clothing, stab-resistant vest, or gloves, contact my friend Ben over at Body Armor USA. Give him a call, 516 area code 817-1666. Again, that's area code 516-817-1666. Body Armor USA, we've got what it takes to protect you. No doubt about it.
There was the explosion, and I remember just opening my eyes, and it got both of my legs. I had surgery after surgery, and what's going to happen next? The Wounded Warrior Project said, look, brother, everything's going to be okay. 3 months from now, 4 months from now, a year from now, you'll be fine. I don't know if I would be as well adjusted as I am now if it wasn't for them.
To learn more, call 1-877-832-6997 or visit woundedwarriorproject.org.
Several dozen shootings involving private security in the past week. 9 security officers have been shot, 1 fatally. 1 security officer in Providence, Rhode Island, has been stabbed. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Across the country in recent weeks, we celebrated Mardi Gras. Now we have moved into spring break. Activity across the country is picking up. There are a lot of things happening. Of course, violence across the country in recent years is skyrocketing. And obviously, this all plays a part into the fact that security officers are being attacked, injured, and unfortunately killed. One of the most heroic actions happened in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina this weekend. A community security officer patrolling a residential neighborhood came upon what he thought was a neighborhood dispute. He got out to assist to resolve the situation when one of the neighbors grabbed his body camera and ran into the house. He notified dispatch for law enforcement assistance, but in the meantime, the suspect then reappeared with a shotgun. He fired several times, hitting the security officer. The security officer pulled his own weapon and fired, hitting the suspect, who again shot the security officer in the face and the head. According to law enforcement, the security officer hit the suspect 3 times with bullets and knocked him to the ground and was able to then subdue him and get him into custody. Neighbors came out to assist the security officer and aid in first aid until police and fire could arrive. What a heroic action by the security officer, an employee of the Phoenix Security Solutions. Both police and fire say that both suspect and security officer will survive their gunshot wounds. An investigation is continuing, but law enforcement is not releasing the name of the suspect or the security officer. Meanwhile, in San Antonio, a security officer was injured there after 2 men had been fighting at a nightclub, then pulled guns, came back with firearms. A shooting occurred. A security officer was injured. The suspect was also injured and taken to a hospital. In Providence, Rhode Island, a nightclub security officer there was stabbed during a fight inside the nightclub. The Board of Licenses has since suspended the license of the nightclub. The security officer is listed in stable condition. A security officer in Oklahoma was shot. He was trying to resolve a situation at a fast food restaurant when the suspect shot him. Once again, that security officer is in stable condition. Another security officer in New Jersey was shot. This was at an apartment complex. He is in critical condition. Police say they don't have a suspect in custody in that shooting. And on and on and on it goes. It seems like no end in sight for security officers being injured As we see more and more law enforcement also being injured, shot, attacked, ambushed, we can obviously understand that anybody in uniform is also a target and has been a target for many years. More than $70,000 have been raised in New Jersey there for a police officer who was injured in the line of duty. A fundraising event and a GoFundMe page was started. Initially, just a few thousand trickled in. Now police say over $70,000 for Bobby Schisler, a 4-year veteran, has come in. The officer was shot. Police say that another officer saved his life by applying a tourniquet. This was during an incident last week. A security guard in Maryland is under arrest after he impersonated a police officer. Police got a call from security at a shopping mall saying a man was running through the mall in his vehicle in the parking lot with red and blue lights. Police found Robert Machete Jr., 53, with blue and red lights on. Police said that he first identified himself as Washington, D.C. police and then said he was a special police officer. Police found that he could not be in possession of firearms because of previous convictions, and he was taken into custody. A bank security officer was shot. This happened on Thursday in Chicago. Police say a robbery suspect got into a gun battle with the security officer there. An Orange County security officer was also shot while checking a person reportedly breaking into vehicles. The suspect is still at large, the security officer in stable condition. 2 other security officers in Houston during a music concert was also shot. A disturbance in the parking lot led to gunfire. The 2 security officers shot are hospitalized. Police also say in Houston another security officer at a different incident was shot. An Oklahoma security officer, we told you, was shot at a fast food restaurant. Well, here in the Carolinas, a security officer was also shot, and it was dealing with a situation at McDonald's. A Portland, Oregon security officer suffered a concussion. The security officer was on duty during a heated city hall meeting. The city has confirmed that it plans to press charges on the suspect, but they are not releasing the suspect's name. A Huntsville company in Alabama has come up with a new technology to monitor the power grids. Observation Without Limits has a new technology that would help utility companies protect against orchestrated power grid attacks and routine intrusions. This after 31 power grids have been attacked across the country. Right now, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and the FBI are still investigating. A mall security guard in Long Island, New York, has been arrested after he forced a shopper to perform a sexual act on him. Authorities say that 33-year-old Jose Azeri was working as a mall security officer when he spotted a woman and told her that she was suspected of shoplifting and had to come to the security office. He instead took her to a storage room where he forced her to perform a sexual act on him. He was a licensed state security officer for Allied Security for 15 years and was contracted at the mall. In Oregon, they have reversed the laws that they set several years ago on retail theft. Now, Oregon lawmakers are considering to again make felonies out of shoplifting of certain amounts, also to increase organized retail crime penalties, and other retail-related laws are also being reviewed. We recently got a behind the scenes with security thanks to a local TV station. Mall of America security staff with hundreds of officers say that the Mall of America sees 32 million visitors each year. They answer more than 29,000 calls for service of all types, and they also have more than 22,000 criminal incidents, mostly shoplifting. They also locate hundreds and hundreds of missing children. More than 40 people were detained in Portsmouth, Virginia over the weekend at a pop-up marijuana market. Police say that's illegal. Although in Virginia, individuals can possess up to 1 ounce of marijuana, it's illegal to be sold unless it's at a state-licensed dispensary. A Lynn, Massachusetts security guard has been arrested. The 48-year-old security guard, Max Nichols, was held without bail in an arraignment. According to police, he allegedly shot a man multiple times. He has been charged with discharging a firearm into a building, assault to murder, after shooting Boston man Antonio Jones, 46, several times. This is also under investigation. We recently have been telling you about the armored truck robberies throughout the country. Now authorities in L.A., just in the last few days, have made a major arrest, cracking a caper that was included several men. Police say that they were responsible for a number of heists of armored trucks. James Russell Davis, one of at least 7 alleged robbers involved in the heist, was taken into custody in the Rancho Cucamonga area last week. Law enforcement, including local police and FBI, had leads that finally tracked him down. A county city building security officer has been praised for quick action in South Bend, Indiana. He was looking out the door and recognized as someone nearby in a SUV was slumped over the wheel. He quickly went out and checked on the woman, who appeared to be unconscious. Officer John Crowita was approaching the vehicle and it began to drift forward. He grabbed the passenger door, jumped in the SUV, stopped the vehicle, woke up the woman, and assisted her with first aid. Across the country, these things happen every single day, although they do go unnoticed by the media. The Connecticut Post Mall, a very popular mall along the Connecticut coast there, has initiated a curfew policy now requiring kids under the age of 18 to have adult supervision. This is happening across the country, although malls really are seeing less retail traffic, they're seeing more crimes. A burglary at another mall, this one was the Southland Mall in Memphis, Tennessee, was spotted by a security officer overnight. Now, the security officer didn't try to intervene, but did instead call police. Officers responded. No arrests were made, but they do have surveillance. A high-speed crash in Indiana over the weekend killed a veteran state trooper. Police there say Master Trooper James R. Bailey was killed on Interstate 69. If you see news happening, contact us at helpdesk@privateofficer.com. A family of a slain security officer who was killed at the Spring Valley, New York Library has made a settlement with the Finkelstein Memorial Library. An out-of-court settlement of an undisclosed amount was reached in the death of Sandra Wilson, who was fatally stabbed while working security at the library in February 2020. In Houston, Texas, another lawsuit. A security officer is suing. He says he injured himself while transporting dead bodies to the hospital morgue during the pandemic. Felicia Bryant filed the complaint, saying that she has several injuries because she had to lift dead bodies numerous times during COVID, and that injured her. When you see news happening, like I said, please contact us at helpdesk@privateofficer.com. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with the topic of the day, juvenile violence, juvenile crimes.
They say if you want a wish to come true, never tell anyone. But there is one wish that can make the difference between life and death. And this wish can only come true if you tell someone. Please, let your family know you want to be an organ donor.
Here we are at the bottom of the program. In that time slot that we always keep open for a training lesson or a topic of interest that really it follows the timeline of what's happening, what's current. And this week, we're talking about juvenile violence and how it directly affects private security. When we talk about juveniles, in most states, we're talking about those teenagers between the age of 12 and 18. Now, it's true that in some areas, juveniles as young as 14 can be tried as an adult for violent, serious felony crimes such as murder, armed robbery, rape, carjacking, kidnapping, and some of the other most serious, egregious, violent acts committed among anyone of any age. Criminal justice refers to that part of the legal system that covers those teenagers. And it gives them an opportunity to correct their behavior, an opportunity to be rehabilitated, an opportunity for their records to be closed, expunged, and never again to be seen. A new start. Even those who are charged with serious crimes under the age of 18 almost always have their records sealed. And it takes a court order, quite a doing actually, to get it unsealed. And usually that's only if they're involved in a latter crime spree or felony, and police are investigating them and they want to see, because they can see on the criminal history that they've been charged. They can't see what the charge is without that court order. So they want to see what the teenager was involved in so they might be able to use it toward prosecution. Juvenile justice really came about so that those teens committed minor crimes, shoplifting, petty larceny, maybe disorderly, maybe misbehaving, maybe not listening to the parents, could avoid that criminal stigma that follow many people throughout their life. And unfortunately, through the years, violence committed by teenagers continued to increase substantially. When I decided to speak about this topic, I had my office begin to research over the last almost 20 years that Private Officer International has been around to see how many security officers were murdered or violently injured by teenagers. And that's going to be part of today's story because we have those documents. Not only statistics, but the facts of the case, of the matter. And so it did not disturb me, surprise me, shock me, or, I didn't fall off my seat when those numbers all got calculated in and we saw what a big impact that juvenile violence has on the private security. Let's face it, private security officers interact with juveniles everywhere. In my days of both security and law enforcement, we were often interacting with juveniles that have committed some type of disturbance or crime in apartments, shopping centers, schools, parks, amusement centers, and just out on the streets, commonly known as just, hanging out or maybe getting into some mischief. Many of the crimes committed by juveniles were just property crimes, breaking into a house on summer break, maybe shoplifting someplace or stealing something from someone, maybe fighting at school. But it was nothing more serious than that. But things have definitely changed, my friends. And now, juveniles are responsible for the increase, in part, of our violent crimes across the country. And it's not just the boys, it's the girls, too. Carjackings, robberies, drug transactions, shootings, murders, all committed by juveniles. We're going to take a quick break. When I come back, we're going to talk about how juveniles in the last 10 years have really seriously affected security officers and how they have been a leader, unfortunately, when it comes to the assaults and violent attacks, including murders, on security officers. You're listening to the Frontline Protector, the voice of the Frontline Protector, and we'll be right back.
Slow down.
Slow down and move over.
And move over. When you see lights,
Vests, or reflectors.
please give us some room. Slow down and move over. When you need us,
We've got your back.
you have ours.
You got our back?
You got ours? You got our back? Please, slow down.
And move over.
Are you looking for the finest private security officer training in the Charlotte metropolitan area? Do you need PPS qualifications in armed or unarmed training? Or maybe you're over there across the line in South Carolina and you need the SLED training. Well, we've got the right training at the right time for you. Premier Training Academy, located at 5624 Executive Center Drive, Suite 142 in metropolitan Charlotte, North Carolina. Give them a call today, 704-806-4933. They also offer firearms training, personal protection, first aid and CPR, and so much more. Call John at 704-806-4933.
There's a lot of things that can be said about juvenile violence, juvenile crimes, juvenile justice system. A lot of areas to address, but in this radio program, we just don't have that time to be able to go through all of the areas where problems lie in the juvenile crime system. I mean, there's so many different things going on with juveniles today that it's really difficult
to narrow down any one thing. So I want to start with a couple of statistics and things that we do know about juveniles interacting with private security. So we went back, and in the last 12 years, 8 juveniles were charged in murders of security officers. And of those 8, 2 of them had scoped out and hid, one in a wood line and one behind a building watching security, armed security. And in 2 of those situations, those juveniles ambushed the security officers, disarmed them, and then killed them. Juveniles have always been an integral part of violence against private security. Private security deals with teenagers and juveniles regularly throughout the country and around the world, I'm sure, in the same manner. Many of your property crimes are committed by juveniles, starting with shoplifting, auto burglary, auto theft, and up until, I would say, the last 10 years, most of the juvenile crimes were nonviolent. Not all, but most. Now we're seeing that most of the crimes committed by juveniles are violent. Many engaging in shootings and murders. Many are armed. And that's one of the concerns that I have had for years about unarmed security personnel who not only interact but try to apprehend or do apprehend and detain suspects in various crimes. And now we're stopping juveniles thinking, oh, this is just a petty crime, or they're just acting suspicious, or maybe they're just trespassing, when in fact they are engaged in gang activity, drug activity, homicides, auto thefts, burglaries, drug transactions, and the list goes on, making it much more dangerous for security. And even those who may not be involved to that level of crimes can become violent. Case in point, about 3 years ago, a security officer stopped several juveniles for trespassing. And what quickly happened, I don't think anyone could predict, and that is that one of the juveniles began assaulting the security officer with a skateboard and eventually caved in the head of that security officer, resulting in him having to have a number of brain surgeries, which left his head, one side of it completely caved in a semicircle, and even still today, through dozens of operations, this person lives with the scars, the remnants of that violent attack, and with a head that wasn't what it was before the attack. It's definitely caved in quite noticeably. Another security officer had lost his eye during an attack just in the last few years, and this also was at the hands of a juvenile. Do I think that all juveniles are violent? Of course not. No different than saying all adults are criminals and violent. But many do, unfortunately, now have the propensity of violence. Many do think it's a game. Many may not realize just how serious their actions and consequences, their actions are, and the consequences will be. And I think that we've drilled down here at Private Officer International on over the last 20 years on the interactions that security has with juveniles. And I stated earlier, mainly it's going to be at apartments, shopping and retail locations such as malls and stores, amusement parks or game rooms, sometimes just in neighborhoods. And security generally is interacting most of the time
with juveniles because they're violating petty crimes, trespassing, shoplifting, theft, vandalism. But now that's turning quickly into investigating juveniles committing serious offenses. A big, big change, a big difference. I can give you a whole bunch of news stories that have recently come out in the last few years about the violence of juveniles affecting our country, our communities, our cities and towns, even in the small areas, the suburbs, experiencing a high increase in juvenile violence. But rather than sit here and tell you all of these stories and read these stories off to you, I really suggest that you start doing your own research. Begin looking at your own community, your own city, your state, your area. What's happening in the world around you? Unfortunately, we go to work as security and sometimes even police, not really knowing what happened yesterday in our own community. If we can prepare ourselves, if we can educate ourselves, if we can train ourselves to know what's happening, maybe not in our world, maybe not even in our country or our state, but if we can educate ourselves to what's happening in our own community, our city, and the surrounding communities where we live, we can be alert to the latest trend, to the latest crimes happening, and maybe even educate ourselves as to who are the suspects and maybe even the wanted suspects. Here at Private Officer, we began about 6 months ago putting out wanted murder suspects, that information coming into our office from various agencies, law enforcement, including the FBI. And, you know, we had a couple of comments in the beginning, and then it kind of just fell flat, like many other things that we try to do at the office here. People just did not participate. They didn't respond. Maybe they read it, maybe not, but we can tell when people delete the email without reading it. So I don't know. Juvenile crime is a situation that's going to continue to increase. It's exploding. I don't think there's much that we can really do about that, but we do need to be on our toes. We need to have great situational awareness and be ready for anything. I myself don't treat juveniles any different than an adult when I'm approaching them, when I'm interviewing them, or when I'm apprehending them. And as a law enforcement officer and a security company owner, I can tell you that we deal with juveniles every day, almost every week for sure. And they are getting tougher, meaner, more aggressive, more defiant. And I told a relative of mine recently, I'm glad I don't have young kids right now, because I'd probably have to handcuff them to a chair at the house and homeschool them, never let them out the door, because it's definitely rough out there. And we really have to be aware of what's going on and understand how dangerous they can be. Don't assume because they look clean cut. Don't assume because they're dressed nicely. Don't assume because they, yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, no sir you, because that sometimes is just all a game. It's a front. We have to, just realize that they can be as dangerous, if not more dangerous, than an adult. And oftentimes they may be armed. So when approaching a juvenile, don't approach them any different than you would an adult that you suspect might be armed or involved in a crime. We're going to do some further training on juvenile violence because it's really skyrocketed. Many police officers themselves have been shot, killed, assaulted by juveniles, and we want you to have the tools that you need to stay safe. So we're going to be doing some training in the upcoming months. But for today, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Private Officer Radio. And if you have information, if you want to send us the news happening in your area or just news about juvenile violence, send it to helpdesk@privateofficer.com. Remember, you can check out our daily news blog at privateofficerbreakingnews.blogspot.com. Be part of the conversation at facebook.com/Private Officer International. And over on Twitter, 24/7, someone's always yakking, talking, and sending out news. Twitter.com/Private Officer. Until the next time, you all be blessed, be safe, and we'll talk to you again here on the radio.